Good evening, sir.
Yo, yo, this is episode 79 of the Beef and Bitcoin podcast with your host, Brett and CH. Today's topics looks like the Bitcoin dump has claimed its first casualty. So we have one crypto hedge fund that has already gone under. I'm sure there's going to be more to follow after this. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about were two of your favorite topics, bailouts and bank runs. And I put them together because it's getting pretty obvious here that you have a number of people who are pushing for bailouts from the firms and industries who've gotten absolutely wrecked from the coronavirus. And then, there's also been hints of somewhat of a bank run from people making their trips to the various ATMs from their banks across the country and finding that they cannot withdraw as much as they thought they could. And of course, that's not a shock to you and I, but it's amazing to see it be a shock to everybody else. But dude, it's been a long week. How you doing this week?
I'm doing good, dude. Things are changing. History is being written right now, and most people are just completely ignorant of it. I think some people are starting to figure out, but this whole coronavirus thing, it's just the pen to this giant, huge clusterfuck of an issue we have with our current financial system and a lot of things that we have. And this is the worst thing that could have possibly happened. I think this is worse than war because at least not every country, like in World War II, World War I, not every country is getting bombed. There's people in South America, there's people in North America, people in Australia that are doing fine. Things are normal-esque. It seems like the whole world has canceled everything at this point, and the U.S. has steadily made its way to third place. I think we're going to jump Italy shortly. We're ripping. We're at 25,000 cases right now, and it's probably going to be like 50,000 by Monday, to be honest, if we keep testing.
Right. We've been talking about whether or not I guess the real question was when the testing gets ramped up, and it looks like they're actually beginning to put the pedal to the metal with the testing here. So I mean, again, it's a matter of doing the tests, then you get the numbers come in, then people react. Until then, it just is what it is. It looks like a good portion of the country is starting to prepare for their inevitable quarantine or shelter in place, whatever they call it. I've been shelter in place now for, it seems like, a week or so already. And, it just kind of is what it is. Not too many people outside. Everybody's staying inside, getting used to the quarantine, whatever you want to call it. But I'll tell you what, it's been a little difficult, but at the same time, so much has happened in the last week just with the markets, Bitcoin. I mean, you name it. It was like, I hate to use the term. It's been a slow motion explosion just all week, and time is moving just super, super slow.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of things that are happening right now, it's information overload. There's so much coming my way right now. Whether you're talking crypto and Bitcoin, just like example of this hedge fund blowing up, then you're talking just regular markets, equities, credit, bonds, you name it, just the global macro imploding in front of our faces. Dude, the China chart's so fake. I'm calling bullshit, man. I mean, look at this. It's not even real anymore. Like, they didn't go parabolic, which is the lie. Like, when you look at their chart, they didn't go parabolic, which, like, their growth rate was not right. That's all I gotta say. That obviously I've been calling bullshit for a while. A lot of people are, but it's a joke that like people aren't saying, "Hey, how many people really got sick? How many people really died?" Because that's why we're at 223,000 cases elsewhere in the world, and China's still at 80K.
Right. It makes sense. Let's why don't we jump into this Rekt crypto hedge fund? So it looks like Adaptive Capital has finally shut down after that last Bitcoin dump below 4,000. And Adaptive Capital, I believe they were formed in 2018, and that was made up of Willy Woo, Murad Mavadov, his brother Masir, and a few others, David Poole, I think. And it's funny, it's like, I don't know. I thought it was funny. Murad's Twitter handle is must stop Murad, and it looks like Murad has been stopped because they they have shut down their fund, and it's hard because I like Willy Woo, I like Murad. I wish those guys the best. It's a shame to see them have to shut down after getting just absolutely liquidated. I don't know if they were trading on BitMEX or anywhere else, but they used on-chain analysis, and they had really good. They put out great Medium articles, and Willy Woo's Twitter threads and his analysis was always really spot on and good to read and very insightful. So we appreciate all the hard work that they did. But I mean, this is more your area of expertise with, watching people just get absolutely destroyed and liquidated when they're trying to trade Bitcoin and other cryptos on high leverage. It's just, you can really get wrecked very fast. And I don't know if this is inside information or it's not, but I did have a follower DM me, and they will remain nameless, who said that Adaptive Capital went long at 6,000. And I'm assuming it was dumping from, it was at 9,000, dumped to 8, and then started dropping. They put on a trade at maybe 6,000-ish or so. And then, that was that, because we ripped below 4,000. It felt like instantly. It just happened. So if they did not have time to get out of that trade quick enough, that's one way to blow up your account. So they decided to shut the fund down. They're returning the rest of the capital back to whatever investors are left. I had here in my notes that this is one of the main reasons why, whenever newcomers DM me and ask me about trading and stuff like that, I'm like, listen, you got to do what you got to do, but try to avoid the leverage. Like this is people get their accounts blown up just, over the weekend, and then they never come back. They think, oh, Bitcoin's a scam, I'm out. And you might lose that person for years. They'll never come back to the space. And it's a shame to see that happen. And, before I let you get going talking about this, there's one other thing I wanted to mention, that I find it interesting that they are closing down and recognizing that they did not get bailed out, right? There's like some of the other hedge funds that we've seen, that we've talked about from the various Zero Hedge articles, who we know they've been getting smoked, not crypto related, just playing the markets. And, we know that part of these repo operations has been to bail them out and to provide liquidity for them to cover their positions. And that doesn't happen in the Bitcoin space. Adaptive, or they took it on the chin, and that's it. They're closing up shop. But I was curious what your take was on this.
All the analysis, thesis, confirmation in the world doesn't matter if you don't have risk management. That's my thoughts. Yeah, I was just gonna leave it at that. But I was just showing, I had like the ticker thing, or not the ticker, but basically showing the length. From peak to trough, this was like over 63% fall. So even if they were on 2 times leverage, and say they might have kept adding to their position on the dips here, being long from 6K, adding maybe the 8,300 dip, adding again 9,100. Oh, get another dip, loading up more, and then you get another dip, and you're thinking, okay, the 8,600, a lot of people were super bullish here at 9K, thinking we were going to go a lot higher, and then we went 9K to 3,900, and it was lower on like things like BitMEX went down like 3,500, depending on the exchange, but I know BitMEX went super low because of liquidations, so you went 9,100 to like 3,900. That's an incredible drop, very quickly, and if you're not using stop loss and you're not managing risk, that's that. That's the end.
Right. And I think, I was trying to dig into this a little bit deeper, and Adaptive Capital had made a mention that, the infrastructure of these exchanges are still not robust enough to handle these types of cascading liquidations to actually exit these positions. So,
No.
Whether that actually was the case, and BitMEX came out and said that there was a hardware failure with their cloud service provider. All this stuff, and my guess is BitMEX eventually pulled the plug on their liquidation engine or something, because I've never seen a drop like that ever. Yeah. That was probably the biggest single 24-hour drop in Bitcoin's history. It was just absolutely unbelievable. And I talked to a couple other Bitcoiners who have been in this space for many, many years, longer than I have, and they were just they said they've just never seen anything like it. It reminded them of some of the drops before Bitcoin even got to over $1,000. Just these insane pump and dumps, and it, you know, of course, we were hitting each other up on that day. My phone was blowing up. Everybody was asking me what was going on. I mean, it was just outrageous. And you can see there was a gap of like 20 minutes where everything was just off, right? And then Bitcoin pumped right after. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see there's about a 20 minutes worth of action where BitMEX was down.
Circuit
and then
breakers.
Right. Speaking of circuit breakers, it was really cool to see. I don't know if I sent this to you, but Dan Tapiero had, he made a really good tweet and, kind of gave his take on the whole Bitcoin crash and was like, listen, for everybody who's asking for circuit breakers and this and that, he was like, you need to let Bitcoin do its thing. It's the last free market that's available to trade. And he was like, his TLDR was Bitcoin will be fine. Let it do its thing. We saw for every 25 sellers, there were like 75 buyers during the crash. So, if anything, you have so many people who are looking to get in. And I had, a coworker had reached out to me and said, hey, my friends are asking me, like, how do I get into Bitcoin? How do I sign up for the exchange? So, brace yourself. The normies might be coming, which is, it's good to see. It's almost like we've needed a little bit of action here, and we certainly got it. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like, I wouldn't be surprised, considering the volatility we've seen across every market lately. Like, it wouldn't be unreasonable to be at like 9,000 next week, or on the other hand, we could be at 3,000. But I would like to lead after a 63% drop there, that we would go higher. That's my opinion, but maybe I'm wrong, and we'll find out shortly here. I don't think we'll be at this level that long. I really don't.
Yeah.
It
just seems.
Yeah. This is the 6,000 range. We're either going much lower or we're gonna fucking pump to fucking God knows where from here. Like if this is a V-shaped recovery, I say in quotation marks, like the people on CNBC and Bloomberg for the past 8 weeks. They stopped saying it finally the past 2 weeks. They finally caved in when they realized they couldn't even go to work. Finally,
right.
I mean,
it's too funny.
That would have been a good that should have been an indicator to wait for. Hold till they can't go to work. Hold your shorts till they can't go to work.
Unbelievable.
I know.
Let's jump into this bailout stuff because there's kind of a lot to touch on here. So obviously there's been a ton of decreased travel globally. The airline industry is definitely taking it on the chin. And it looks like collectively they're asking for a $50 billion bailout with, basically federal help. These are the same people who, if you, take a look around 20 minutes of research, you'll find that the conglomerate of airline industry spent 95+% of their free cash flows over the past few years just buying back their stock and pumping it. And they did this during a decade-long bull market. And now they want a handout. And you can see the just such a response on Twitter, at least from the Dave Collins of the world, a ton of Bitcoiners, anybody who's interested in free markets is like, there is no fucking way we should be giving these fools a bailout since they don't manage risk, right? They did not take, they mismanaged their company, period. And it's unbelievable that they would even ask for such a thing. And, I think it's important to mention that I've heard some people, smart people say, we really need to bail these out. We can't have airline travel just stop, right? And that's their assumption is that if, Boeing stops making planes or United goes out of business or Southwest or whatever, the planes just magically disappear. And that's not the case. The pilots are still there. The planes are still there. The mechanics are still there. The flight attendants still exist. And you're going to have competent entrepreneurs who can come in, buy these companies for pennies on the dollar because we're totally mismanaged and they can run it up and not make these same mistakes again. But it blows my mind to see people who are in favor of seeing these bailouts.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane, as we've talked about before numerous times in this podcast. Share buybacks are the most ridiculous thing in the world. There was a reason they were illegal for over 50 years until 1982, and there's a huge, you can't deny it, there's some correlation here between share buybacks and the beginning of the millennial boom. from the early 80s where stocks and bonds just rose together. And when I say bonds, I talk about price. Yields obviously have been crushed for 30 years. But it's absolutely insane to me because, like, these companies buy back shares with cheap debt, and now when the economy completely halts, and think about it, theoretically they could have paid this out as dividends, they could have reinvested capex, they could have kept it as cash, like Apple just building a huge cash position, obviously like Warren Buffett too, but no, nothing. So they don't have shit. And from what I've heard, they carry very little cash to the airlines, and they always have recurring money, and nothing could happen. Like, as an airline industry, like, you could only imagine the damage a world. I mean, this is probably the worst thing to happen. I would think a world war would be pretty close, but this is even worse because no one can fly. This isn't like World War One or World War Two. I guess we're different times because air travel was just beginning World War Two, before World War Two. But anyways, the point being is like, wars happening in Europe and happening in the Pacific didn't affect people as much in North America, South America. There's obviously wars in Africa too, but if you lived in South Africa, it wasn't as big of a deal because you didn't have to deal with what happened in North Africa. But point being is, like, parts of the world weren't affected and things went on. That's not happening right now. It seems like it's just cancel everything everywhere. There's no way the Olympics are going to happen. I don't know why that's even a thought anymore. Like, people are saying, like, I think Japan, from what I've been reading, has kind of been falling to don't test, don't tell policy. Maybe I'm wrong, but because they had a bunch of cases to start, and then apparently they didn't have cases, and I have a hard time believing that because they had planes flying from China to Japan back and forth for a long time. Same with South Korea. Japan had like the most flights when I was looking at the FlightAware app here. Let's see if I have it open somewhere. There we go. The live flight radar. Japan had flights just going from South Korea to and from for just the longest time, and it was just like nonstop. They still do. Let's see. Oh, Beijing to Tokyo. Like, that's enough. But anyways, I think South Korea is pretty toast right now. But for a while they did, and you can see air traffic's picking up quite a bit if you're watching online. In terms of Southeast Asia, still going. And again, as long as these planes are flying, there's no way you're going to stop the infection spread. China's like, oh, we're just going to keep flying, because we've contained it, I say quotation marks, but they might have contained it, but there's no way the number of infected and dead are the right number. When we look at, they're a country of like 1.4 billion people, and Italy's 60 million, and Italy has more deaths now, and Italy's infected, it's going to pass in like 2 days, I assume.
Right.
And the U.S. honestly is gonna blow past Italy in like the next week. Just watch. We haven't been testing; it's been spreading, and Americans think they're just like we're just impervious and nothing could possibly happen to us, and now we're all quarantined.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see all of the memes will be made from all the kids on spring break and all this stuff, trying to have a great time and don't really care too much about the coronavirus. Which on one hand, I get it. Your spring break was taken from you. It definitely sucks.
My spring break.
On the other hand, it's like this is like well, here's the thing. Regardless, it kind of reality will hit you one way or another, and everybody just kind of has to deal with that. But the other thing I wanted to touch on, regarding the bailouts was I wanted to talk about Warren Buffett here because, much to my surprise, he's actually been bailed out more than once. And you'd really need to take a closer look at it to realize it. And Berkshire Hathaway is one of the top shareholders of Delta, Southwest, United. So if they get bailed out, so does Warren. And many people forget that the same thing happened with Salomon Brothers in the 90s and then Wells Fargo and Bank of America in 2008. And I saw this quote on Twitter, and I wanted to say it here. Why do we keep bailing out one of the richest people in the world? And I mean, I think that you just nailed it right there, because people like to give Warren Buffett so much credit as being one of the best investors of all time. And, I get it. I give him a lot of credit for his diligence and value investing. But at the same time, if you get to take mulligans on your worst trades, it doesn't even matter. It's all irrelevant, in my opinion. Imagine getting to just literally take a mulligan on your worst trades, and only your best ones count towards you being the greatest investor of all time.
And these trades have been liquidations. It's bailouts. It's like,
Right. It's like your trade went to zero. It wasn't like, oh, you got wrecked, 30% or whatever. It's no, your entire investment went to zero, and you got bailed out by the taxpayer. It's atrocious, and it's hard because it's Warren Buffett. How do you not? Any person who is interested in investing obviously looks up to the guy, but if you don't realize that his worst trades have gotten, like, he's taken mulligans on them every time, so he's never had an account blow up on him, where every other retail schmuck who's been trading has had their account blown up one time or another. You know what I mean? It's just like, imagine if you got to take a mulligan every time you blow up an account.
Yeah, that'd be nice. That'd be very nice to know.
Right.
It's like, instead of the Fed put, the bailout put, it's there.
Right. No, it's unbelievable. I guess we can. I don't know if you wanted to touch a little bit more on Boeing specifically. I know you've been sending me some of those charts of them just getting absolutely.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Destroyed.
I didn't even think about pulling up that chart, because the chart is. It's incredible.
Yeah. So what? They've gone from 350 down to 95 currently as of Friday's close. This is today's Saturday, March 21st. People have already forgotten about the 737 MAX crashes from 2019 that basically started that tipping point on Boeing. Now you have coronavirus limiting air travel. So what are you going to make planes for? Who's buying planes right now? They've, as you mentioned before, they've issued a ton of debt. Over the past few years, they've bought back $100 billion worth of stock since 2013. Boeing has asked the White House and congressional officials for a short-term aid for itself, suppliers, and airlines as the outlook for the travel industry worsens by the day. It's just unbelievable. And then I saw a clip on CNBC that basically this was a commentary from Boeing saying, if Congress doesn't act on significant government support by the end of March, our company will begin to take the necessary steps to reduce our payroll in line with the 60% schedule reduction. So in other words, and John Thornton on Twitter had said this, the headline should have read, this was United Airlines, my apologies. United Airlines CEO holds employees hostage in taxpayer extortion scheme. And that's 100% what it is. Basically saying, all right, we're going to lay off all of our workforce if you don't give us a bailout, it's just disgusting.
Yeah, this fall is ridiculous. So from that frickin' $440 peak, it's fallen 80%. That was right before the 737 Air Max crash in April 2019, if I remember correctly. But on the year, it's down peak to trough 74%. It's incredible. So this isn't even a trading tip. If you ever see a yearly doji stick, short the dick out of it, because that's what's going to happen.
It's it's unbelievable. But I think this is a good point to touch on. When we're talking about bailouts and all this stuff, I think this is a good time to remind everybody about why sound money is so important. And, in this example, I like to use Bitcoin, but there's no bailouts in Bitcoin. And when you think about watching all of these big corporate firms who have benefited greatly from capitalism over, just since the United States existence, and then they just look
the Tesla chart.
Yeah, there's Tesla.
Dude, it's gonna engulf the prior year. Watch. It's probably gonna engulf the whole chart.
It could.
It's gonna be the. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just was. It's a good point to talk about why, fiat money continues to enable these bailouts, and it's like this corporate socialism, which is just we need to get rid of it, right? I mean, and the only way that this is possible if you can go to the people that you lobbied for and say, hey, we want to cash in on that check that we wrote you. Give us the bailout, and the taxpayer will fund it, and they won't know any better because they'll think it's the end of the world, and they'll, gladly have their currency debased to bail us out. And you can only do that when you don't have a free market for money. I don't know if you have any extra thoughts on that.
No, I agree. It's the money printer go burr. I'm going to actually pull it up. Bird.money.
Yeah, it looks like that's the new meme for sure.
There we go. We got to slow him down. Chill out, buddy. That's the new meme. Burr, Federal Reserve, Swiss National Bank, Bank of England, Bank of Japan, People's Bank of China, money printer go burr. That is where we're at. It is helicopter money mode. I mean, Hong Kong, we discussed it before at least once or twice on this podcast. Hong Kong is now doing helicopter money because their economy has been absolutely devastated because on top of the riots and protests they had since May of 2019, basically up until the coronavirus, their economy's just been whacked. Like the hotel rooms were really cheap before. I remember we were talking about in the fall. I was like, wow, you could literally go just pent up in a hotel for like, I don't know, it was like $20 a night or something. It was something cheap, really cheap, like nice hotel rooms in Hong Kong because they had so much vacancy. It's absolutely incredible seeing this happen. And helicopter money is just so they can, as I've said before, it's so they're going to give, in the U.S., they're theoretically thinking about giving people, I think, below $76,000 income $1,200. I think it's just a one-time thing. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's a monthly thing. But so it's just a free helicopter money. So they're going to give every freaking idiot. I don't mean to use the word idiot, but if you're giving $1,200 and you're super happy while the government and the Federal Reserve go behind your back and print trillions to keep asset prices levitated and stimulate the economy, yeah, you're an idiot. And I don't mean it in any mean way, but this is why things have gotten to where they've gotten, and they're likely going to get worse because this coronavirus thing isn't going away right now. And if we're lucky, like in most of the civilized world, maybe things can get back to normal. Like I'm talking Western Europe and the US and Canada, maybe late May. And that's being hopeful. That's like thinking that this self-distancing thing works, but people don't seem to be following it that well yet in the US. And by the time they do, it's going to be too late because we're going to be at like 1 million cases. I don't know. It's going to be pretty ridiculous though. We're heading there.
Yeah. I mean, it's really difficult to think about, and I was going to save that whole QE topic for one of the next episodes, but yeah, I mean, if you're the Federal Reserve or a central bank across the world, and you're a hammer and everything looks like a nail, you're just going to print money. You're going to print your way out of it. And even we were joking weeks ago, like you can't print money to cure a virus, and the money itself almost is the virus. And I think Jesse Colombo, he's, made his return back to Twitter, and it's been great to have him back. And he's absolutely right when he says this, that, the global economy already seemed like it was teetering on the edge, and the coronavirus was nothing more but the pin. And you and I had, been talking about for a year now. It's like, what is that black swan event? What is that thing that burst the bubble? What's the pin itself? And it's, apparently now it's pretty obvious that it is this, global pandemic. That is the pin that burst the bubble. But the fundamentals were just trash to begin with. And it's a shame that it takes something so catastrophic and devastating to like wake everybody up, right? And this was, we talked about this last episode about those tipping points where all of a sudden, literally at the snap of a finger, overnight, everybody is concerned. And Dude. It's just such a good to watch it happen in real time when you were just a couple of weeks ahead of everybody else of seeing this happening, and then like watching everybody wake up to it. It's an amazing feeling.
It's like trading like the crypto bubble again, except this time I guess you're getting prepared for a global pandemic, and everyone, it's right in front of their face. Like I remember, like I wasn't early to crypto by any means, but I was early-ish in 2017. And I was looking at this thing, I was like, holy shit, what is going on here? And why is no one talking about this thing? These things are moving hundreds of %, and no one cared. A lot of people, some people, show a little interest. They say, I'll put a little bit of money in. But I was like, fuck, I was all in. I was like, what in the fuck? And you obviously went all in too. You went crypto meme page. I mean, you were more all in than I was. You were memeing. And, all of a sudden, like, come October, things started to change, in the fall. And it was like December. It was like, holy cow. It's like it actually is happening. It's kind of like this again. Like, a few weeks ago in January, I remember I sent you an audio message like, dude, this has to be the Black Swan. I think it was like mid to late January. And I was like, there's no way, like, this isn't the Black Swan. I was like, there's no way. No one's taking this seriously. There's this virus in China, and people are just faceplanting because you and I are seeing all these videos on Twitter and all these ridiculous pictures, and we're like, what the hell is going on there? And no one in mainstream media is taking it seriously. We were hearing about the flu, only old people. Oh, it's only in China. Oh, there's no big deal. It's just a cruise ship. No big deal. It's South Korea and Italy and Iran. Oh, fuck, it's here.
Right.
Yeah, like
It happened overnight.
yeah.
Well, it didn't happen overnight, but everybody became aware overnight, and then everybody's a professional virologist all of a sudden. It's just unbelievable to watch it happen.
Yeah, dude, people just ignore you about it. Don't answer your text, dude. I texted so many people and told them buy supplies, buy water. This is a kind of a big deal. I get no responses. I would get laughed at, whatever, and it's like, ha, it's like not so funny anymore.
Right? No, I know. I know.
And I don't like being right about it, but I do.
No, no, I know.
Just the flu.
Yeah, right. Just the flu. Yeah, it was just the flu until like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, literally everyone's like, "Oh, just the flu. We're gonna be fine." And now, not so much. Everyone barricading.
Yeah.
Everything ceased to exist.
What do you think? You want to talk about the bank runs and that CNN article that just came out?
I've been a partaker in these bank runs, man. I find out I can only pull out 5,000 at a time. I find out they're like the first time I came in, they were all like, "Why are you pulling money out?" I'm like, "Well, are you paying attention to things? Like,
right?
Not trying to, but like, I'm not in like." And then also reading that statistic at the FDIC, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, is that correct or company?
I'm not sure. I don't know what the C is.
Yeah, but anyways, they're only 1.4% insured, and as Christopher, I can't think of his last name, but Peak Prosperity is what he runs on YouTube and Twitter. Said on Twitter, he was like, who's gonna bail out them, the bailouters, and who bails out them,
right.
It's like, no, if they're only 1.4% insured, what happens when all the well-capitalized banks, as I say in quotation marks, do that? It's incredible. Like, I was talking to the lady, like the tellers at the bank, and the ladies were like, "Yeah, no one has deposited money. They literally didn't have cash." Like a couple times, they're like, "Yeah, you come back in the afternoon if you want like hundreds and fifties, because all they have is like fives and ones." Like, bank people are pulling out cash like crazy. I've seen on Twitter someone posted about like they were like told like Chase Bank told them that they wait like 3 days to send. I'm sure the dude, it was X Trends. I'm sure he was sending some ridiculous sum of money because he was short to the tits on this and called the whole thing. Like, but anyways, it's clear right now there's a run on cash. Like, we're seeing the dollar is ripping faces off right now.
Yeah, and Raul's been talking about that. He's been just banging this drum for a long time. Long dollars, bonds, all this stuff, and it's amazing to see when there's a flock to safety, and for whatever reason. Well, the U.S. dollar, I guess, is the best of the fiat shitcoin, so that's where you're going to go, right? Everybody, everything's basically priced in dollars. So you have a mad dash of just complete liquidation of all assets, whether it be gold, Bitcoin, equities. I mean, you name it. It's like, oh, all right, time. We're getting out of there. Go to your money market funds. Go to dollars, whatever. And you can just see the mad dash. And then when I saw this CNN article, and the title is literally "Do not take a bunch of cash out of the bank because of coronavirus," you just like, it's almost like whatever you see them say, just do the exact opposite. And it's almost like its own counter indicator for whatever they post. And it's, it just kind of pissed me off, actually. And there was a quote in there in that article on CNN Business. It said, "The safest place for your money is inside a bank. Banks will continue to ensure that their customers have access to funds either directly or electronically," the FDIC said. So this is basically saying, we want you to fall for the security theater of bank vaults and FDIC insurance, when, the reality is they don't want you to know that fractional reserve banking exists, right? And people are, my coworker sent me a screenshot of a text. He's like, "I went to the bank and like they wouldn't let me take out, X number thousand of dollars." He's like, "Well, that's my money. What do you mean I can't take it out?" And all of a sudden the light bulb goes off instantly when you realize, that's not your money in the bank. That's period. It's theirs.
Not.
You
Really,
lent it to them, and right, it's not yours.
That was my point to the ladies at the bank. I was like, "It's my money. Can I pull it out?" And they're like, "Well, and it's like, exactly. It's not your money in the bank. Not your keys, not your coins. It's the same applications to your dollars." And honestly, like, people can say what they want about physical cash. It's dirty. It's this and that. But physical cash, people don't turn down. If you have $100,000, people do not turn down money like cash, and like credit. I mean, obviously there's certain situations like airlines don't allow cash anymore, which is the dumbest thing in the world. They force you to use debit and credit cards. I'm sure, again, that's part of this whole panopticon thing, that people can't just get in a flight. They have to use, if you want to buy something on the flight. It's all about the, panopticon layer, knowing where every transaction happens, keeping an eye on everything.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's just like, and I've been saying this for the last couple of days. It's just, Bitcoiners aren't going to need to say a word about the not your keys, not your coins thing, because everybody who goes to the bank and tries to make a withdrawal will just learn it for themselves right then and there. And all of a sudden, not being able to take your money whenever you want will start to make sense, right? We won't even have to say not your keys, not your coins. They'll get it instantly, that's the whole point, right? You want the light bulb to go off for them personally. I can say, not your keys, not your coins, and don't you realize that's not your money in the bank, and blah, 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 blah. None of it matters until there's a global pandemic and you want to take a couple $1,000s out of your checking account. That's like, it's the reality.
Yeah, no, it's clear it's happening, and as you said, it's like the light bulb switch. It's happening all at once. It's the S curve. It's you go from 0, 1, 2, 3, 10, 50, 99%.
Right.
Saturation. I mean, it's incredible watching this happen, and it's happening. As you said, overnight. It's like everyone has changed their mind on this. It's a big deal now, and it's like. Well, it wasn't a big deal to everyone 2 months ago when it was blatantly obvious that this was a big deal. But again, someone, I don't know who said it, it's like they have to see the people like Tucker Carlson, they have to see Brett Baer, they have to see their person Rachel Maddow on TV. I don't know who you watch. I'm just listing big American names that are on like MSNBC, Fox, CNN, etc. They have to see those people say, hey, be scared, be fearful, pandemic.
No, yeah, I think you nailed it, and that's the reality. Until it hits them personally, whether it's a family member or a friend of a friend maybe gets sick, or their town all of a sudden is under quarantine, or somebody loses their job because of it or whatever. And until you're personally impacted, or you wherever you get your news from tells you all of a sudden, okay, it's time to be worried, and then you worry. I mean, it's a shame that it's come to that, where that's the barometer for your belief. It's really tough to see that, but again, it's also eye-opening to me just to know that exists, and to watch the light bulb go off so quickly is just amazing. And I hope that's what the eventual Bitcoin light bulb looks like the next time around, right? And you said it perfectly. That's what happened in 2017. All of a sudden it was like, man, why is nobody talking about this crypto stuff? And then boom, all of a sudden everybody was talking about it. And it's you're waiting for that next thing to happen. And I think as you can see people talking about the bailouts coming, all the QE that's about to be injected into the markets, just the overnight repo operations, $1 trillion overnight each day. I mean, the numbers start to get astronomical, and I'm sure you do a good job of pulling up the Federal Reserve balance sheet, and I'm sure that's just going to reach levels that you just don't even think are possible. What did we top out at? What, 4.5 trillion from QE3 or whatever, and now we've gone vertical, and I'm pretty sure that number isn't really up to date from the last
V-shaped recovery, man.
Yeah, on the Fed's balance sheet, that's certainly what it looks like. So I mean, I'm guessing we just blow right through 5 trillion to 10 to 15 to 20. I mean, I think it's going to go to numbers people don't even think are possible this time around.
Dude, Weimar Republic, man. If you haven't read about the Weimar Republic and what happened with hyperinflation post World War I, please do so. Please enlighten yourself. Please understand that is the path we are on. We are on this missile, and I am stuck on it. Crypto Humor is stuck on it. You are stuck on it. We are all stuck on it. And we're about to slam into a wall is what's going to happen when you're doing hyperinflation. And when it doesn't work, like it's not working right now, while markets are in free fall and everyone is hoarding cash and interest rates are rising, that is very bad.
Right. No, yeah, it is. There's no other way to really say it. It's what a time to be alive. I mean, we're going to just see the craziest shit we've ever seen here with, fiat money is arguably the biggest monetary experiment in human history. I mean, the gold standard just made so much sense. A sound money standard just made so much sense. It's not that complicated. And when you realize you have no clue how money is created, what the Federal Reserve is, what the fuck is a repo operation, all this stuff, primary dealers, this and that. I mean, none of it matters because it's all just money theater, right? It's banking theater. None of it is real at all. And it's just a big joke at the end of the day. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's why we talk about it, right? Because it is a big joke, and it's important to kind of bang on that drum and get the message out there. That's why, we didn't care about any of this shit until Bitcoin and this kind of stuff. So it's, it's just perfect.
Yeah. I really thank myself. I don't know if I thank myself, but I'm really glad I stumbled down the Bitcoin rabbit hole. Not that I haven't stumbled down a bunch of rabbit holes before, but it really opened me up to just a whole can of worms. But it blows me away how many kids are kids that graduate that are financial majors, have zero clue about fiat money, how the banking system works, etc. Nor do they understand support and resistance.
No, I think that's really that's important, because I keep saying that, if you're a financial advisor, you have a friend that was a financial advisor, that's what they studied in school, and they weren't, screaming at you at the top of their lungs in December 2019, January 2020, February 2020, that something didn't look right. That just means they, obviously they didn't learn anything in school, because they don't teach this kind of stuff in school. You unfortunately have to learn it the hard way and read, Austrian economics, read history, read When Money Dies, all this stuff to kind of realize that the whole fiat experiment is like a big sham, and it's you have to do that learning on your own. So I hope that all of the FAs who didn't see this coming warn their friends, clients, loved ones, and others. I hope they wake up to it, because it's those opinions, to me, they're worthless.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. It's like the problem is as people have talked about on Twitter a few times, you have a whole generation of financial advisors, money managers who've never seen a real bear market, who have been for a decade, have been just every time we dipped, whether it was the Fed coming in, whatever, we bounced. Nothing was sustained. Even the 15% dips we had in 2015 and 2016, they were quick V rebounds, and then it was off to the races.
Right.
And obviously the start of 2018 we had that quick crash, but we recovered from that in March. The rest of 2018 to all-time highs for most stocks and indices. And then on top of that, even that Q4 crash in 2019 or 2018 that, rebounded into 2019, it again was only 20% and it was over quickly. Everything was, you and I were like, holy shit, the world is ending. The banks are meeting on New Year's Eve. And no one even cared then, but now it's pretty obvious. The sentiment change is massive.
Right.
No matter how much money they print, people won't believe it.
Yeah, no. Well, I think that's a good way to wrap this one up. A lot's happened this week. I thought these were a good set of topics to talk about. Stay tuned. Thanks for listening. Make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on Spotify. We do appreciate the recent views on YouTube. That has definitely been helpful. So make sure to subscribe. That definitely helps out the channel. We do appreciate that. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. That also helps. And we know times are tough and crazy right now. So shoot us DMs. Let us know what you want us to talk about. If you've seen anything in your local area, whether it be ATMs running out of cash, or are your friends and family starting to ask questions? Is anybody DMing you about Bitcoin and other stuff? Definitely let us know, because those are the kind of insights we like to talk about, because that's real. Those are the real people out there who are starting to wake up and see what's going on. Peace.